Thomas Parry, do. Tell me about games, do. I hope you've played some, 'cause I really ain't. Please tell me about some games. Thomas Parry, tell me about games.
That was better than last time, Matt.
It was. It's almost as if we recorded it twice and I had time to figure out what I was going to say.
How many times have we started a podcast saying that, oh, it's the second time we've tried it, or third, or fourth?
Maybe once or twice. It's Tom Matt Attack.
We're a bit out of practice, aren't we, Matt?
We are. We're rusty.
But I thought your singing was great.
Thank you. I try.
And I'm going to try and tell you about games, but I think it's going to be more of a case of you telling me about games this time around.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I have played maybe an hour and a half's worth of games since we last podcasted. Right. And yes, surprise, listening audience.
When did we last podcast?
It was about end of November, and I'd played a lot of games, and I talked about them in detail, and we were both like, yes, Yakuza, yes.
Oh, yes, that one's not been released, has it, Matt?
It has not, no, and it will
not
go
at the time
out,
of recording this, but it's going to come before this.
It'll be in the feed at the same time.
Oh, the same time.
Oh, two things. Yeah,
that's
so
exciting. You get one content-filled podcast, and you get another podcast which is a little lighter on content, which is this one.
Yeah, pretty much. Is how I imagine it. So if you want to hear us talk about Persona 5 Tactics, I also played a little... I finished Yakuza, or Like a Dragon, the man who...
raised his name.
And I also beat something else. I did like a massive like wodge of games that came out at that time. It's all good. I'm sure we talked about Sonic. I'm sure Shenmue was mentioned. If you want to listen to us really talk about games, go there.
Okay, I think it's more of a case of, say I've not played anything. It's just sort of remembering, what I have played. I tell you what is interesting that I can talk about. It's moving a games collection, because that could be kind of interesting for listeners who are probably in one place and they might be collecting games and amassing a collection and not really thinking about when they have to move. My advice would be very selective.
Yeah, I mean, I knew this and I told you this because I did the same thing and then amassed more games here. And like I very much think, and I've had this conversation a lot of times, like, I should slim down my collection. If I were to move again, I would probably sell at least 40% of what I have.
It's not fun moving a lot of games. Also, it's not just games, it's accessories and consoles. And I moved a broken Xbox for some reason. I don't know why.
What if you need it one day, Tom?
What if I need
a nice paperweight?
I mean, so basically, for newer listeners, you probably don't know, but I used to live in Denmark. That's where I met Matt, and that's where we started this podcast. And, I collected while I was in Denmark. I also brought over a few things from where I was living with my parents prior to moving to Denmark. And then, so I amassed all that. And then I moved all that out back to my parents again. And then I moved to London. And then I amassed more stuff in London. And, not really considering what I'd left at my parents. And I moved everything from London up north. And then I had to think about what was at my parents'. And you know this well, because you've still got stuff at your parents'. I know that.
Yeah.
From years and years ago. But, then I have to move all this. And so I just got everything from London kind of nice. And that was, that was difficult. And it's not just games, there's toys. That's another thing. I've realised that I have a lot more toys than I thought I had.
Yeah, I had that.
Yeah.
I had that realization when we moved to this house, and this is why I've kind of stopped buying them unless I see a G1 Transformer in a charity shop. If I see a Grimlock in a charity shop and it's like 50 kroner, I'm like, oh, you're coming with me.
And the thing is,
I won't.
Say with toys, I tend to keep the boxes. So I have an attic full of empty boxes currently. So that's also a complication. You think like, oh yeah, if you sell them, I think you've got to really think about it, what you want to keep, what you want to sell, and if you do want to keep it and you don't need the box, but then, when you move again, it might be easier to transport it if it's in a box, So there's all these things.
Just wrap it up in bubble wrap.
Or wrap it up in bubble wrap, which is, majority of my stuff is probably still wrapped up in bubble wrap. But
ironically, also the boxes.
What's that?
I said, ironically, also the boxes.
Yeah. It's a challenge, and but I'll get there. I know eventually, and I will be selling some stuff. I would imagine. I think it's the hardest stuff to store is the accessories. I think games, as long as you have enough shelves, enough space for shelves, you can store games. Accessories are weird shapes and sizes, and that's something I've got to. I mean, House of the Dead, overkill light guns, or just light guns in general. You just want to put them in a bucket, or something.
I mean, to be fair to you, though, at least, you may be able to reap the benefits of being the only person that was just I'm going to get every one of every rock band guitar, because those plastic instruments are worth quite a bit of money.
Are they now? Because people want to play them, they don't make newer ones. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I do have a lot of that. I have the Gene Simmons Guitar Hero guitar.
You bet your ass you have the Gene Simmons Guitar Hero unlicensed guitar.
Oh, no, I think it's licensed.
I mean, by Gene Simmons, yeah, probably.
Not
by,
kits, yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So I've been busying myself a lot lately with just sorting out, because we moved just before Christmas. So that's been keeping me very busy sorting everything out. And I just got to a stage where it was sorted out when I brought over all my stuff from my parents, which, they were very glad, because that's been in there for over a decade.
Yeah, I was going to say.
For my mum to have a room emptied and given some space back, because she's a little bit like me. She has a lot of stuff. She collects a lot of stuff. So she was very thankful for the space, and I was happy, to be able to give that space back to her. But it's left me with a bit of a conundrum that later today I'm gonna, get back to work on and sort stuff out.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's just a warning. When you're collecting, think about it a bit, and I'm sure every collector does, but it is easy to get carried away.
It is,
and it's not fun when you moving around a bit. Yeah.
No, I mean it definitely isn't, and also the fact we've talked about this until we're blue on the face. We have substantially large video game collections. We have talked from the fact that I used to go to a flea market and buy everything I saw.
Well, Matt, you're a magpie, Matt. You'll pick up stuff off the street and take it home with you.
I will. Yeah.
So will I. If I see a CRT TV abandoned by the side of the road, I will take it.
Hey man, you liked that CD rack I found you that one time, so
I've got 3 CRT TVs knocking around. One in the garage, one in the games room, and one in the front room. At the minute,
I have one, and it's 16-inch, and I very rarely use it, which probably says a lot about. Maybe I shouldn't have so many retro games because I don't play them.
No, well, there's so many ways now to play retro games through modern. Nintendo Switch Online is great. I mean, you've got a lot of classic N64, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, and so on there. And retro compilations and clone consoles, some quite good clone consoles out there too, that don't require you to have a CRT. Although I do have a Laserdisc player.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you do.
And that is sort of comes to life a bit more on a CRT, and it is nostalgic to stick in an old system and play. N64 always looks better and it's not great. I mean, outside of PC, I don't think there's great emulation options for the N64.
No, I wouldn't say so.
No.
I mean,
I'm not up on that, but
no, it's not something I follow too closely. But honestly, I cannot tell you the last time I thought about, I must play this N64 game.
I'm the N64 guy, that was my go-to, so I do still play N64 rather often.
don't get me wrong, I did say that and was like, maybe I should play some like that was.
Yeah,
So,
but that's great that it's on Nintendo Online. I think that service, what it offers up in terms of N64, I mean, since it got 1080 on there, which is another favourite of mine, 1080 and Wave Race and Lilac Wars and Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, I think is on there, and Zelda, and it's pretty good.
It is.
And a very convenient way, and you can play it with if you get one of the controllers from Club Nintendo. Is it still called Club Nintendo?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the wireless controllers for Switch. Also wires. You play it on a CRT, an original console. You've got to contend with them cables too. So
yeah, you got to think about. Hey, I need to sit I don't know, maybe a meter away from the screen and the console, which is why I have a tiny CRT because I'm 90% of the time I'm using it for Master System stuff.
Yeah.
And those are very short cables.
So it
doesn't really matter.
Currently in our front room, one corner of the room has the new TV in it. It's 43-inch Samsung, fairly cheap TV, but very good, I think, especially for the money. Yeah. And then the other corner of the room has the Philips larger CRT in. So I've got one corner dedicated to the modern and one corner dedicated to the retro. And that's in the front room, which really wasn't something I was, keen on turning into a more sort of gaming orientated retro. But it's more of a retro audio visual setup than it is a gaming setup. So
yeah. Okay. So when you want to watch Heat on Laserdisc.
Yeah, it's when you want to watch a VHS or a Laserdisc, or you want to use a multi-region DVD player. Yeah.
I.e. your PS2.
Oh, I can do it upstairs and downstairs now. So.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone off on one there, but I think our listeners get the gist of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's think about the shit you buy him, because also money is nice.
You'll spend weeks, months trying to fit it into when you move to somewhere else. And it does take a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it is nicer to have less stuff. I can say that. That's a statement. Just have what you really like. Don't try and... I mean, with you picked a great format to collect for Game Boy because, it's very storable.
Yes. Literally, it goes in a games wallet. I have
if you're buying loose cartridges,
shelf.
that is, yeah.
I mean, you've seen, I have one Billy, and I think, I've got a smaller Billy adjacent thing as well, which is full of games, but I could double stack that and I could minimize that space if I wanted to. I've just kind of left it one face in because it's easier to see.
Yeah, I have to double stack. But...
to be fair, I've been thinking about doing it myself because I don't look at the boxes that much, and I know what's there, I know what I have boxed because my Game Boy stuff is memorized. For better or worse, I absolutely know 100% what I have on the Game Boy. Game Boy Color, a little bit less so. A little bit of I know I have this game. I can't remember if it's complete in box or not. But then also Game Boy Advance, I've got a lot of, and I'm just wow, there's a lot of crap Game Boy Advance games here as well. So maybe I should just double stack the ones behind that I don't actually care about. Because if I accidentally went to a flea market and picked up a second copy of Strawberry Shortcake for 10 kroner, is it the end of the world? No, it doesn't really matter.
Because they're small-ish things.
Yeah, exactly. So it is what it is. I need to have a sort out.
But it's all dependent on the space you've got. We could do with an even bigger. We're renting a house. We could do with an even bigger house. We could do with a 4-bedroom house. If we had a 4-bedroom house, I think we'd be very comfortable. But you don't think of that when you're collecting. You don't think, oh, one day I'll need a 4-bedroom house, because of my collection.
Yeah, just to hold these PS2.
Just to keep all the stuff in that you've collected. And I mean, when you're considering buying a house, or even renting, a house, it does make matters more expensive when you have to think.
Well. I mean, we moved into our place, and I realised, our apartment was holding a house's worth of stuff, and then obviously that doesn't account for the stuff I've bought since I've lived in this house, and so I try not to buy too much shit unless I have to now. And then I got into the one-piece trading card game, and again, also something very easy to store.
What are you doing? How does your mind work? Yeah, you're thinking about small things. Only collect small things.
I mean, it's the way to go, I think, personally.
Unless they're Skylanders.
Unless they're Skylanders, yeah, because
They're small-ish.
odd shapes, Tom.
But
like
the amount
cards,
of Skylanders,
Game Boy things, they go in wallets.
The amount of Skylanders I have. How do you store Skylanders?
You did that to yourself, mate. Is all I'm gonna say.
Oh dear, Skylanders. Yeah, I think is the gaming industry moving away from this? I think we saw that with Ubisoft's spacecraft game. Starlink didn't seem to sell very well, did it? Well, we know it didn't sell very well.
It's a shame.
It's a shame.
Really
it's cool, but maybe gamers were just thinking, we're going to put all these plastic vehicles. I've already got a load of Skylanders. I've already got a load of Rock Band instruments. And they're a bit cumbersome because they're quite big, aren't they? The ships.
They are. I mean, they look cool, but like the thing is, right? The thing I learned from that game was like, you could still do all this in a video game. Like the upgrades of weapons and everything else. You should have just made a really good flying video game.
Yeah.
You could have made merch for it rather than like force people to buy plastic peripheral objects they don't need.
I think that was the trend at the time, but they were a little bit after the trend.
They were behind it. I mean, like Dimensions had even ended by then. Skylanders had ended. Disney Infinity had ended, and then you got like. There was some weird stuff, like some figures that were like iPad enabled that I see in free markets every now and again. There was Starlink, and there were some other bits where they were like, "Oh no, this is a really good idea. We should do toys that come to life." And it's like, well,
Toys to Life was the name of the genre, wasn't it?
Is the category, yeah. But it's like that only. It worked for Skylanders, I think, and subsequently for those other two games because I think people were like, "Wow, this is a novel, unique."
I think
thing.
it's quite a great
nice
idea
to display.
There's a certain magic to it, but when you've got so many different ones, you've got Skylanders, you've got Infinity, you've got Starlink. That's a lot of space to consider.
And also they're ultimately. I mean, I say Dimensions is obviously like it's minifigures and bricks. You can play with them anyway. But like ultimately, Skylanders and Disney Infinity for me were bad toys. Like, yes, I would say I have one or two Infinity figures. Like I've got the Boba Fett and I've got some other stuff because I think they're quite nicely stylized Disney characters.
I think they look great. Yeah.
But like a kid doesn't really think about displaying stuff, do they? A kid wants a toy they can,
as toys, there's not a lot of playability. The playability is in the video game, isn't it? The toys are just a way to get into the game. Yeah.
It is, and then when you get into the game, you could just do the same thing as Fortnite has proven with skins and everything else.
Oh, imagine if Fortnite, you'd have to buy the characters physically.
Oh God, could you imagine? It would just be like you would. Yeah, it wouldn't work, would it? It wouldn't work. And like,
they could have done that. That could have been a route, and maybe it was talked about at one point. Oh yeah, make Toys to Life Fortnite. They buy the figure, they get the costume.
Nah, man. Like I think Fortnite came along after all of that stuff, and I think I don't think it's. I think Toys to Life kind of had its time, and it was a novel experience for then. I don't see a world in which you can. Well, maybe if the Ubisoft statement comes true of like, well, people should get used to not owning their games or whatever was said and blown out of proportion this week by Ubisoft. Maybe then having a physical representation of that game that allows you to access content and you're like, this is a physical thing I have. I have, I don't know, a statue of Ezio that I will always have that will always allow me to play Assassin's Creed.
Rather than it being just an access point to the thing. That's interesting. They've done this actually. There's an audio device for kids that takes cards.
Yeah.
Right, and all the cards are doing. The cards are just an unlock. I don't think the music's stored on the cards. So you just plug the card in, and then it recognises you've purchased the card, and it downloads the music to the device.
Oh, I know. I've heard of this thing. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, so if you want something physical, then you could go that way, but without an internet connection, without unlocking it, then
it's Yoto, right?
Yoto, it's interesting. The players are actually quite cute. I mean, there's a regular one and there's a dinky small one.
It's got like a little pixel screen. This is really cool.
Yeah, they are very cool.
I forgot about this thing.
Yeah, don't be tempted to buy
I'm not going to be tempted to buy one, Tom, because alas, I'm not a child and I have access to Spotify music.
Yeah, because the primary function of them is to read stories to your kids, I think. But strangely, they released the Beatles' Red and Blue albums when they were re-released recently on cards, and also I think they did a best of Queen.
I mean, if you're going to get your kids music stuff...
Yeah, get your kids into the Beatles and Queen, yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to say hello to Paul McCartney? Which is something I can see here. Is
and hello, goodbye, yeah.
Yeah.
That did the Beatles.
I would love it's really odd, actually, now I'm looking at these things. There's Beatles songs by Casper Baby Pants, which I imagine is then like lullaby versions of Beatles songs. I could do that. Sleeping songs as well. Like, oh man, it's just like it breaks my heart, right, when I scroll through this, because they've clearly got they just got amazing children's book illustrators to do a lot of this stuff, and like I'm looking at like beautiful illustrations of stuff, and like some are leaning into like the classic illustration like style you would have on like these gold foil embossed luxury books you see, and then every time I see like a branded piece of content, it's just like clearly like a stock image of like a Muppet or something, and I'm like, oh, you could have made this so nice.
Are we talking about the actual cards here?
I'm talking about the actual cards. I'm looking at them.
So the cards themselves are quite nice to look at. Then you stick them in the old device and you can't see them.
Well, I mean, it's fine, isn't it? They poke out the top, but I think like as a piece of media, again, it looks like a children's book.
And that's something you can collect because it's small.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they go in a binder. Think about it; it'd be lovely. I could say hello to Paul McCartney.
I tell you, one of the best examples of illogical game, and there's loads of examples of illogical game boxes, but they had a great thing in Japan with the GameCube boxes.
Yeah, they did.
That wonderful. Why that? This whole idea something's is deemed more valuable if it's bigger. It will come back to bite every collector, because PC big box games, they're a pain.
Yeah, well, it's because it's a disc, right? It's literally floppy disks.
Yeah.
I mean,
why can't Switch boxes be half the size?
Switch boxes do not need to be anywhere near the biggest size they are, but I guess,
Again,
retailers have certain shelf sizes and they need to fit into certain shelf sizes, and you're not going to tell people like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you make shelving units for this small and ultimately easier to steal product, please?
Yeah.
Like they need to be able to put that little wire strip thing that clips into the side of the case so people don't steal it. So
I see examples.
And all this kind of stuff.
You ever seen that Amoeba record store? They've got the channel on YouTube where musicians go in and they buy records and such, and they talk about them.
I know of Amoeba. I have not seen the channel.
Well, I wasn't familiar with this in the UK. I'd never seen it, but in the US, in that store in particular, their CDs are twice the size because they put them in these plastic extenders.
Yeah, big boxes. Yeah,
where it's like a plastic sort of frame that just makes them twice as tall, and that's how they store them. Again, that's what you were saying. Like in a shop, you need to have these bigger. They feel they need to have these bigger boxes.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
got
right?
Cold.
It's okay. To be fair, it's like in Japan when you go and you look for video games. Generally speaking, when you're looking at Game Boy games in particular, like you get a plastic hard case that was clearly big enough for a CD, and then they've got little like foam things that they've made space for Game Boy cartridges, or sometimes they'll just have them in the plastic clamshell, so it's like 4 in one thing, so you can flick through them quite easily and see what's there, rather than you going, right, here's 100 Game Boy games on a shelf that I need to flick through. Yeah. And I think it would have to be that way with Switch games. I think what would end up happening is if you made the cases smaller, all of the anti-theft stuff that works on all of the other physical media would then be null and void, and you'd need to like invest in another system. But B, you'd have to put them all behind glass. I mean, they do that with Pokemon cards in most supermarkets here now because people nick Pokemon
but just
cards.
make them the same size as the GameCube case. Because they obviously sold GameCube games like that in Japan.
Yeah, in Japan, though, but that's what I'm saying. Like, in a Western world, like, it's the security things. Like, think about the length of those little security things that you need to like disarm and take out when you open a case. You would have to invest in like new infrastructure, and again, also new ways to shelve them, because a Switch game kind of fits comfortably in a DVD thing, even though it's too small for it. If it was smaller, then you would never see it on shelf either.
Yeah.
Oh,
these are just things, you
logics.
sort of look at it and think, again, it's always Japan, isn't it? It's like, because it's space in Japan, because they don't have maybe as much space. If you live in Japan, you're probably living in a smaller space, so everything is smaller. The Famicom is small, the NES is big. The Saturn cases are CD cases. Of course, the Saturn cases in Europe are bloody massive things.
Yeah.
I think that they got it right. I think I'm just talking from the perspective of someone who's now moved from a flat to a house and still doesn't have enough space. Kind of, yeah.
Hey, mum, like I said, that is a sign to me you need to downsize some of your stuff.
Yeah, but that is a challenge in itself.
And then look at it and go like, oh, cool. Silent Hill 3, how likely am I to play this? Oh, it's £100 now. Bye!
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, probably the original release. It got re-released. Silent Hill 3.
It doesn't matter, mate. Any release of Silent Hill 3 is ridiculous. Any release of if you have the collector's edition, that card one of Silent Hill 2, the fucking most common version of Silent Hill 2, £150, I think, something like that.
Is a sealed haunting ground worth anything?
Yeah, a shit ton. Haunting Ground itself is worth a lot of money.
I thought it was, and then I found one on eBay sealed, and it was like £30 or something, and I was like, I bought it.
Haunting Ground's really expensive. Let's do it live, Tom.
Haunting Ground PS2. I have a sealed copy, right? Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, right. Haunting Ground PS2, complete in box.
106.70. Oh, that's not even sealed.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Like, Haunting Ground's a very expensive video game.
Sealed. 150 sealed.
Right. You have a UKV version, probably. It is all on versions. It is all what version of the game you have, especially with PS2 stuff, where people are willing to pay a premium for the UK version. Right, actually, I can see a UKV version of it here. It's £150.
Yeah. This is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's the same one you're looking at.
Yeah.
It looks like the US one's more expensive. That's interesting.
But I still think that's a lot of money.
I think that's a shit ton of money.
And I've never played it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's fine. I'm going to do the thing I like to do every now and again. Sorry, listening audience. How much do you think my copy of Michigan Report from Hell is probably worth?
Yes, this is something I would have liked to own myself. I don't know. 200? Probably the highest.
There is no UKV versions on eBay. There is a French-German version that someone's currently asking €750 for. I paid £5 for it.
Yeah, I picked up King of Fighters 98 on PS2 for. Remember this? You were there, I think. Yeah. And I think that's also.
I do. It's the only time I've ever seen you snatch a game out of my hands as if I was going to buy a fighting game. Yeah.
Well, I apologise.
I was just like,
that's a bit rude.
I literally. So we were outside a game shop. I'm sure we documented this at the time on the podcast. And I mean, I literally showed it to you to be like, do you want a King of Fighters game? And you just went, nah! and just pulled it out of my hand.
Is it interesting how you change as you sort of get older?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, it is. But I mean, it's also just like, after you then told me, like, oh, this is a really, really obscure release.
Oh, yes, I think that had something to do with my reaction, didn't it? Because I knew that you don't see that. King of Fighters 98 on PS2. Is it as rare as... Ultimate Match. There's been so many of them now. There's like Ultimate Match now.
Yeah.
Final edition. King of Fighters Ultimate Match Final Edition.
Yeah, no, the version you had, which is King of Fighters Ultimate Match, is there's a sold listing on eBay for £80.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think you probably paid somewhere in the region of £5 for it.
Yeah, it was it's a Fiver, yeah. 50 crow.
Right. Let's stop talking about video game value and let's actually start talking about video games.
Oh, yeah, that was about playing, because, it's cool collecting video games, but, you have to be careful about it. But playing them is what it's all about, yeah.
Hey man, like as someone who's, as I've mentioned, someone who's very much into the One Piece card game at the moment, and prices are berserk, and I've literally seen like 3 videos of like these short, like clippy, reely things on Instagram. It's like, hey, you want a good return on investment? Buy some One Piece cards. You can buy a box, and then you pull this. Oh, look at this card. It's worth £3,000. Ba 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 ba. And it's like, yeah, you're the reason I can't buy any fucking cards to play the game I want to actually play, you dickheads.
Yeah, real shame, isn't it? Yeah, I know.
It is. It sucks. And I mean, to be fair, this is the same with video games at the moment, isn't it? Like, reason Michigan Report from Hell is like whatever ridiculous amount I just said it was, or someone's trying to get that. It's because there aren't that many copies of it. It's probably never going to be re-released. And there is a supply and demand issue, and obviously everyone who's aware of that game has hoovered it up and put it away in a vault, or in my case, probably a cupboard, and then gone, cool, I've got that game, I don't have to worry about it, and so there aren't that many going on the market. Whereas One Piece, people are just buying stuff and flipping it and going, eh.
You have to, Castlevania 3 on the NES. Yeah.
Vampire's Kiss on the Super Nintendo, also ridiculous. It is just what it is. Yeah. I was literally thinking about this earlier, and weirdly, I thought about someone I hadn't thought about in a long time, and I don't even know why I thought about them. But then I was just like, I remember buying a boxed copy of Wayne's World for the Super Nintendo off them for like £3, and I'm like, I wonder how much that game is worth now. Well, it was a strange thing.
Before we jump, talk about what we've played. I've been watching a great channel. This relates into collecting and toys and such on YouTube called what's it called? The Leicester Vintage Toy Shop. Are you familiar with this?
No, I'm not.
They do a series called Toy Shop on Tour where they travel around. First they did the UK and then they've travelled around Europe.
Oh, yes, I am aware of this channel because I think they visited my good friend Tom.
Yes. So I watched this episode the other day and immediately thought of you. And I imagine he's in an interesting situation with games and the value of them. And yeah, it's someone who works directly with that. What were your experiences of going there? Prices when you were going there were probably a lot lower than they are now. Have you been there recently?
I haven't been there for... When was the last time I went? I went when I was home last year.
Super Tomato in Cardiff.
Yeah. Well, this is the same as going anywhere, right? Like, there's a place called the Retro Stash in Talbot.
Yes, they went there as well.
There's Console Action in Swansea. There's one in...
Have you seen the episode?
No, I haven't.
You should, because they go to Port Talbot and they say how lovely it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to get into talking about Port Talbot. there's too much going on with the steelworks in Port Talbot, thanks to our lovely government at the moment. So I'm not going to talk about.
But it seems to be a good place for retro stuff, and you should check it out, Matt. Yeah.
It is an area of the world where, like, I think the reason I'm into RPGs the same way I'm into RPGs is because there was a lot of people who clearly played that stuff and traded it in quite regularly around the South Wales area, and that's how I got into it. Yeah. I will just say sorry to anyone affected from Talbot in the recent announcement from the Steelworks. Hope it all goes through okay, and hopefully...
How many listeners do we have from Port Talbot?
Quite a few, it seems, every time I go back.
Are you a local celebrity?
Told, apparently so. That's how it goes. Anyways, what I was going to say before that is, I think I've seen the prices of games rise everywhere. I think the interesting thing about Tom's store in Cardiff is that they go to Japan quite a bit, and they bring back like interesting little bits from Japan.
That was evident in the video I saw, which is from a couple of years back, I think.
I'm sure at the time they still had that Final Fantasy GameCube that they just bought in hard off for nothing, which I think there's only like 1 in 25 in the world. As I've said on this podcast before, like they've had copies of like Rendering Ranger, which is the Turrican spiritual sequel on the Super Nintendo that there's 1,000 copies of. Like, they've had lots of good stuff in, and obviously, like, as time has gone on, as the market has adjusted, so are they. But I always think their prices are fair, and I always think they have stuff I very rarely see elsewhere. So.
With a lot of Sega, because I saw on Instagram the House of Sega is their Instagram handle, so they have a lot of Sega.
They have a lot of Sega stuff. Which is why I always end up going in there and buying Master System stuff these days, because I think it's gotten to the point where I have all of the Game Boy stuff I could possibly ever want, and so I end up getting talked into, oh, this is a good Master System game, and so I genuinely.
Because that's the next thing you jump to in retro.
Yeah,
Master System.
I don't really. I wouldn't say there was a period where I was like, yeah, I'm collecting Master System, and now I'm just like, okay, cool, I've got everything I want for the Master System.
It's like a phase, isn't it? You get into something for a while, and then it's like it sort of peters out a bit.
Well, it was also just the fact that I picked up that copy of Power Blade 2, right, for like next to nothing, and I was like, well, I've got the rarest game on the Master System, bar one or two obscure racing games.
Bar Power Blade 1. Is it called Power Blade?
No, it's not Power Blade. It's
Power's. It's not. Yeah. Isn't that an NES game? It's called
Power Blade is the. Oh my god! See, this is how much I give a shit about the Master System. Clearly.
Power Strike. It's called
Power Strike. Thank you. Yes,
because I have the first one, which I think is also collectible.
It is, yeah. As is the second one, because the second one was only released in Europe and Japan.
Talking about people are asking. Yeah, a bit for that as well. Anyway, we're going to talk about games. What have you been playing, Matt? Sorry.
Right. I've played 2 games. One of them I will talk about briefly because I don't think it's a very long experience. It is a game that I had seen on many, many people's Game of the Year edition list things like many years ago.
We haven't done that.
No, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't think we really played.
I don't think we're qualified. We're not qualified to do game. There's a podcast title. We're not qualified for your Game of the Year 2023 podcast.
No, I mean, mine will obviously be. I really liked Like a Dragon, the one who raised his name. Surprise, surprise!
I'll have to think about what my Game of the Year is because, as I said,
I've played a lot of stuff. But I right. So I'm undergoing, as I do most years, a dry January because why not? And as a result of that, I'm also kind of.
That's not drinking.
Yeah, that's not drinking for January.
Okay.
But that is a thing that is kind of reflected in games. Not for the same reason I don't drink alcohol. It's just like, oh, well, I drink a bit more than I usually do at Christmas, which is not a lot in the start. And I'm like, okay, I'll let my liver have a break from that so I don't do anything. But it's more, I'm almost having a gaming fast in January because both Yakuza 8 Infinite Wealth comes out next week.
Tekken 8 is out.
Kiryu Kazama. Oh my god, we need to talk about the Brian Cox Tekken 8 thing in a second.
What? I don't know.
Oh god, how have you? All right.
Well, Kiryu's in Tekken 8.
Let me finish my thought.
Sorry.
There's a new Yakuza game. There's Persona 3, the remake of Persona 3, and then there's also Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. So, like, there are 3 RPGs that I really give a fuck about coming out in the space of 3 weeks of each other. So, I'm not playing any games right now because I know I'm probably going to be playing 3 RPGs.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, it is. And so it is. No, what I was going to say to you is, have you not seen Brian Cox, i.e.,
the actor,
I forgot his name of his character. Yes, the British actor who is in Succession and many other things. He did an Instagram reel where he pretty much just talks through the entire lore of Tekken.
What?
Oh, have you not? How have you, of all people, not seen this?
So he was hired by Namco, Bandai.
By Bandai Namco, yeah. And he just sits there and just talks in his very Brian Cox voice about Kiryu Kazama and his
Kiryu.
Not Kiryu. Is
you mean Jin and...
I don't fucking like Tekken, Tom. I don't care. Jin Kazama, king of...
You mean Kazuya? You were talking about Kazuya.
I do mean Kazuya, yeah. It doesn't matter, Tom.
Right.
Anyway, it's just Brian Cox talking about Tekken and just pronouncing Japanese words and things with all of the weight of Brian Cox being Logan Roy and just clearly not really giving a shit, but being there because they paid him probably a lot of money to talk about.
Yeah, he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. You know, the Tekken sort of backstory is very complex, and
it is. He talks about Heihachi. He talks about everyone else.
Is Heihachi dead? I can't recall. He's dead, isn't he? Then he comes back, and then Kazuya was dead, but now he's come back. It's like no one tends to.
I mean, again, I don't know the law of
Okay,
Tekken.
sorry,
I look at it every time. I'm like, oh, law. This law's son now. Okay, cool.
Martial law.
I know that. Yeah, martial law and everything else.
Forest law. Oh, forest law.
Forest law and martial law. Yeah, martial law's a ridiculous name. Now I think about it. Yoshimitsu.
Lei Wulong.
Exactly. We can just say all of these names like Brian Cox all day. Anyway, with that in mind, with all of these, like, hey, I'm going to have to play a load of games. I've played 2 games. One of them we talked about and we promised each other on the last podcast. No one's heard up until this point.
What?
That we were both going to buy Wanted Dead.
Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Team Ninja game. You didn't. Well, Tom Parry, I'm here to tell you, maybe don't.
Don't bother. Really? It's a third-person action game. What could go wrong?
It is. Team Ninja difficulty, and then also not really being very good at making shooters, is what I will say.
Who's it developed by?
I think it is directly Team Ninja, and I think it's published by someone else.
Not Team Ninja.
It is. Wanted.
I think it's a different studio.
I will tell you. We have talked about this many times.
Maybe with ex-Team Ninja staff.
Right. So the game is developed by Soleil, which is a Bala Studio Games thing. They made Devil's Third. It is the people who went and made Devil's Third made an action shooter game.
Oh, that was the studio headed up by
what's his face?
Itagi. I can't. Yeah, the Dead or Alive, the father of Dead or Alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is Satoshi Kanamatsu?
No.
Is the studio runner, and then it is the Dead or Alive guy. I can't remember his name. He's listed in this Wikipedia.
Hang on. Can you hear that keyboard?
I can hear that frantic typing.
Because that's a big mechanical keyboard. Tomonobu Itagaki.
Yes.
Is the guy who created Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden. No, we revived Ninja Gaiden, didn't create Ninja Gaiden. He obviously brought it back for the original Xbox, and then went on to do Devil's Third.
He did. It is so. The Hardcore Gamer describes it as a modern take on a third-person action game from the early 2000s, and overall a punishingly difficult bloodbath as a joy to play.
A joy?
I would disagree with that last statement.
I didn't think it had the greatest reputation.
No, it did not. It's got a Metacritic score of around 50. It is... Right. There are things I really like about it in that it has the Tom and Matt attack charm of like a trashy third-person action game. I can quite clearly in tone make reference to things like Shadows of the Damned quite comfortably.
Good.
However, it is, as that pull quote just said, punishingly difficult even from the get-go. I've played about an hour a bit, and I'm like, do I really want to play?
How much
this?
did you pay for?
I paid like 15 quid for it or whatever it was. I bought it on sale in the Christmas sale.
Oh, on digital.
Yeah, I bought it digitally. I was like, well, let's try this before I spend 50, 60 quid on a physical copy, and I'm kind of glad I didn't.
I think you can get it for cheaper here.
I think you could, but like essentially, it's a mix of a third-person action game. You have a mix of using a gun and using combat mechanics as you would expect, and then you also have a sword, and so people come up to you and like you slash them and you do whatever. There is a very high emphasis on you can't really get hit because you don't have a lot of health, and also pretty much what happens is like you just get swarmed immediately from the get-go before they even really let you settle into the shooter mechanics by like melee combat.
Oh no, I don't like the sound of that.
It's all timed parries, and if you fuck them up, you instantly die. And I was like, I'm playing this on normal, on the easy mode, where you at least get revived once when that happens.
Yeah.
But generally what happens is you go into a big environment, you have absolutely pittance of ammo in your guns, and bullet spongy enemies to try and take care of. So you're like, right, I need to get relatively close to them because I need to do headshots, otherwise I'm not going to get through this room. So you do that, And then generally what happens is, in most of these areas, you kill one wave of enemies, and then you get like charged by 4 people with swords who instantly kill you. And I'm like, this is not fun.
I mean, how would it compare to difficulty level of something like Ninja Gaiden?
I think Ninja Gaiden, while difficult, is more technically competent.
Ninja Gaiden, it has a reputation to be difficult, but it's very playable still.
The only way I've managed to circumvent it in my hour of playing so far is generally to trick the AI by making them run into one of my cohorts.
That's not a good...
And then my cohort pushes them, and then I unload a clip in their face before they can pull a sword on me. And like when you're having to think about that in an action game where you're supposed to be in cover shooting things, it's generally not a fun time, Tom, is what I will say.
Okay. Well, that's a shame.
It's a shame. It is a game I would love to watch someone else play who is willing to put up with the bullshit that this game has to offer, or a game that I would love them to put in like a god mode for, so I could just play it and not have to worry about like actually dealing with it and just see the clearly ridiculous story, because it starts with you being a woman in a high security prison that's run by AI with a massive robot arm and a big imposing military man comes in and is like, we need you for a mission. And it's just really dumb. And there's clearly like really weird stuff. And there's also a character that's kind of intriguing, because I've not really seen it done well in a game before, who is either hearing impaired or deaf, and is speaking with sign language. And I think it's handled really well. And I'm like, this seems like the most nuanced thing in this game.
It's the gameplay that's not... Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It suffers from deadly premonition syndrome, where all of the stuff around it is like
it's
weird
really
and
cool, but the
unusual,
gameplay's a bit hokey.
And the gameplay's really trash. Yeah. So I'm a bit sad. I might play a bit more of it because I have it, and I'm not really looking to play anything else. They dropped there's that new Granblue Fantasy game, like another RPG that's dropped based on the Granblue Fantasy series, which is a big gacha thing in Japan. Called Relink, which I've heard very good things about. Everyone I know who's played that demo has been like, oh, that's excellent. But much like the reason I haven't gone back to Sea of Stars, even though I really enjoy that game, is I'm like, I can't do JRPGs at the moment. I need to save my JRPG head for the JRPGs that are to come, and so it is what it is. So maybe I'll dip in and out of Wanted Dead, but...
I'm reading about the studio. Now, Valhalla was the studio that was
Devil's Third,
created by Ikigaki, and then that was merged into the studio that's developed Wanted Dead, which is Soleil, I think. Soleil, yes, isn't of course it is. Yeah. Soleil. So that studio died because I wondered what happened, because Devil Third came out by Valhalla Game Studios, and it flopped as far as I'm aware.
Yes, it tanked. Also, curiously, I'm gonna go to ebay.co.uk and check how much a copy of Devil's Third is now.
Nothing, I bet. I bet there's no demand for Devil's Third.
Oh, Tom Parry, people want full Wii U collections. Wow. Devil's Third, buy it now, £70.
Wow. Well, I own that. Good. Okay. I like Devil's Third though. I think it's fine. I tell you what, I had quite a fun multiplayer mode, which you can no longer play.
Yeah, weirdly, the American copies of Devil's Third in particular are worth like £300-400. Right. I don't know why. I guess it was more widely published in Europe because we like trashy games. I don't know. So
Valhalla died, which is funny because it's
it went to Valhalla.
Yes, in 2014. Whereas and then the team merged. Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is. Anyway, so I played that. I might go back and play a bit of it. A game I'm definitely going to go play back, I'm going to loop back around on a big tangent, is the one that I mentioned that was on a lot of people's Game of the Year lists a couple of years ago, which is called Burly Men at Sea. I don't know
yes. No, yeah. I remember hearing about that. Not know very much about it, though.
I bought it on a PSN sale a while back, because I think it was like £1. And I was like, oh, well, if people like admittedly, the pull quote is like, "This is in Time's Game of the Year," and I'm like, well, I don't really care about Time Magazine's opinion on Game of the Year. Fine, but I heard a lot of people on things like Giant Bomb and Kind of Funny and stuff that I also like to watch and listen to at the time talking about this game. So I was like, well, I've bought it. Clearly, it's in my library. I'm looking for something quick to play, and it started life, I believe, as an iOS app.
Oh,
so I was like, well,
very graphic. I mean, graphic is in not gory.
Graphical,
graphical,
very like minimalist graphic design aesthetic.
I imagine you were quite interested in this based purely on visuals.
To be honest with you, I just bought it because I'd heard nothing but good things about it, and it was a quid, and I was like, well, why not? And then I started playing it, and I was like, oh, this is very nice. Like, it is of that time of like very minimal graphic design, leaning into just using like simple imagery and stuff, and also just there's beautiful things because a lot of the graphic design is like shape based, and so it's very minimal in its aesthetic. And it also manages to carry that through to the music and sound effects. And so, like, there's a man who makes you coffee, because of course there's a man who makes you coffee and talks about it being like a one bean origin coffee espresso that he's made himself and all this kind of stuff. Because that's very much the vibe of the game.
Hipsters.
And when it's very hipster. When he makes the coffee, instead of like them using a sound effect of a coffee machine, it's a person clearly making the thing of a coffee machine going off and doing like the Foley work with their mouths. And then there's also a blacksmith who's hammering away in one of the buildings, and it's like ding, ding. And it leans into that aesthetic.
Was this on Switch? Sorry, did you say?
It is on everything. It is on Switch.
What did you play it?
I played it on PS5, where again I was reminded of its existence, and I bought it because it is on sale at the moment, and it's a New Year's sale for like £1. I think this is a game that, honestly, in my heart of hearts, while I'm like, yeah, it's really cheap on a console, I haven't checked how much it is on an iOS device, but I believe the way the game plays would probably lend itself better to a touchscreen.
Oh, right. Not even... What about Steam? Mouse.
I think you could play. I think you could play it quite comfortably with a mouse, because like it's mainly you're pointing and interacting with things in the environment. But what you're generally doing is you're going left or you're going right, and like it's very confusing on the opening title screen because you need to interact with it by swiping it. Which obviously, if you have a touchscreen, was one of the first things you do. But I was trying to move a cursor around and clicking on stuff. I was like, nothing's happening. What the fuck am I missing?
So about the Switch?
Then I didn't play it on the Switch. I played it on
the
PS5.
but maybe it will have the touchscreen.
Yeah, I think it would work on the Switch. And so I was just throwing. I was literally mashing all of the buttons, and I realized, I need to use the right analog stick to like swipe the screen. This is very odd. And so there's been a couple of instances where I didn't really know what to do, because I think it would be obvious to me that the game was stuck in a loop sequence if I was using a touchscreen, because I wouldn't be able to do the interaction as quickly. Like there was one instance where I was racing something, and like they're like, right, if you fall behind me, then you're gonna die. And so I was like, right, okay, well, I'm not gonna fall behind him and hold the right analog stick. And I did. And then like a minute into that race, I was like, oh, actually, nothing's really happening. And then I realized I needed to I let go of it to see if I died, and I didn't. And I was like, oh, actually, what I need to do is like pull this character back, which I imagine again would be a swiping gesture. So I would have figured it out because that character really interacted and moved, but it didn't. Generally, it's really short and really sweet runs of this game. It's not like, don't take run the wrong way, Tom. I know you're like, oh, roguelike. It's not.
How did you know? How did you know I felt like that?
Because I can see into your brain. What happens with this game is essentially it's like 5, 10, 15 minute like small stories, and it's these three burly sailors. One's the angry one, one's the brave one, and one's the curious one or something like that. I can't remember what their names are because I've only played through twice. I'm sure when I come back next week I'll be able to be like, oh, it's these three. And generally these characters, they're going on like cycles through this story, and so it's kind of almost like a point-and-click adventure in the loosest way you're describing that, because every route you take has multiple paths you can take, and the gameplay loop is so small that you can kind of just go through one or two of these stories and see some interesting things and have some small interesting interactions that don't really get in your way, which again I think would be perfect for a mobile game. And I see why, when this was on people's Game of the Year list and that's how they experienced it, that was there.
So you sit on the toilet and you do a little story, and then you'd go off and do something else and come back to it
exactly.
for a moment later. And
yeah, exactly. They call it a quiet adventure game, is how it is described on the opening screen, and I think that sums it up really nicely. Again, I'm going to try and play this now on iOS because I think it'd be a better experience rather than playing it on console. But I think it's quite charming. I think
it must be, considering you want to play it again on a phone.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is the ideal way to play it. But it's pretty good. And it's not going to break. It's not going to break your budget. It's not going to take you too much time to go through. I think looking at how long to beat, you can do everything in 2 hours. But again, if you're playing it 5-10 minutes at a time, that's gonna
a lovely little game to play on your phone. My favourite, Part-Time UFO.
Exactly, it's same vein of that. Yeah. It is just like a little idling game when you've got 5 minutes and you want to play something and do something a bit different, rather than just scroll Twitter or look at The Guardian and go, oh god, it's all going to kick off.
I genuinely think Part-Time UFO is one of the best games I've played in the last I don't know how many years.
I would probably include, and this is a bold statement, it's not backed up by science or me actually thinking about it, I would probably include Part-Time UFO on probably my top 10 games.
Yeah, it's just pure gameplay, so well done, so addictive, so well presented. Even getting all the little outfits for the guy as well is fun.
I just love the little how all the music, again, the presentation, as you say, it looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, it's so well considered. It's because it's HAL, isn't it? It's just a good fucking game.
Yeah. I played. Is there anything else you've played before I?
Nope, that is it. Other than lots of One Piece card game.
Lovely.
And I want to talk about that.
Mario Wonder, played a bit more of that. I haven't completed the game by any means, but I did pick it back up again in the new year. There's something about a Nintendo game, especially a Mario game. It's great. Yeah, I really like it. It's a lot of fun. I've not got too much more to say about it. It's still enjoying it. Still think it's a very solid, creative experience. And what else have I played? I tell you what, I had a situation that I've encountered on the Series S. The obvious one, isn't it? You're going to run out of room because the internal storage is very small.
Yeah.
But then that really does change the way you play games, because if something is really frustrating you, and I had this situation with Need for Speed Unbound, because it's a game I've poured a lot of hours into and really quite enjoyed, but I reached a point in the game where it was becoming nigh on impossible. I couldn't find a way to beat a particular race. It was just very frustrating, and I couldn't get any further. And that's when you delete the game, because you don't have the storage space to keep a game you don't necessarily, you're done with.
Yeah.
Right? So I won't come back to it because I won't reinstall it. But I've sunk hours and hours into that game. But I won't come back to it because I can't just leave it on the hard drive. If something has to go, it has to be the game, that I've decided, well, I can't get any further with that.
Well, this has been my question to you a long time, and this is kind of looping back round to the start of the conversation when we had about physical media and the space that takes up. You have always been a person where I'm going to buy that on the Xbox because I want to have it downloaded. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the beauty of digital stuff. You don't need to keep stuff on a hard drive if you're not going to play it. And I think this is a good thing for you that you've reached this conclusion, because I think hopefully this will now allow you to go well, I haven't really played this game in a year and it's still on a hard drive. Am I likely to play it? Should I delete it? Should it make room for something else?
If you need the room, I said, and on my other Xboxes, I don't necessarily need the room, but on the Series S, space is a premium, and you want to sample the latest Game Pass has got to offer. So you end up having to make those sorts of decisions. I've got only a few games on the hard I deleted Biomutant off my Xbox Series S recently for some space because I finished it, and I'm like, well, I left it there because it's one of my favourites, but I thought, well, I haven't come back to it in this time, and I played it before it was upgraded to the next gen, and I found it a fine experience. So, no, I've never played the next gen version of Biomutant, but yeah, I delete Biomutant, I delete Need for Speed, and I still didn't have enough to. I think I was trying to download Far Cry 6 because I wanted to try that out. Still didn't have enough room for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you really have to be very economical with that, and it's just not a great situation to be in when the storage costs so much. I think it's come down a bit, or there's other options that are cheaper now for Xbox storage, but yeah, you do have to be selective. Definitely.
You do.
I've got Forza Motorsport on there and Forza Horizon 5 and Sonic Unleashed. And I think in terms of Series XS games, that's all I've got. And that's all I can fit. Interesting.
Hey,
I say if you want to sample a lot of games, you need a bigger storage thing if you do intend to go back to those games and you want to. Because something like Forza, you can just pick up and play whenever. It's nice to have it there because there's not this moment in that game where either any Forza game where you feel so frustrated with it and the progression is halted. The problem with Need for Speed Unbound was the progression. I could not progress until I did finish this race in first place. And even with multiple retries and stuff and upgrading my car as much as I could, I didn't see a way of doing it. Which is really frustrating. Also, you get up to a point in the game, because the way it's designed is the more races you do, the more heat you get. So the police are more likely to chase you. And you end up in a situation where you're trying to progress in the game and get to the next race, yet your heat level's so high that the police are on you all the time, and you can't go to that next race until you've lost the police. So you spend most of your time trying to lose the police, and then, I get to do the race so I can progress. And then you don't do it in the week. It gives you like a timeline. It says you get up to this part of the week and then you can do the qualifier. So you work your way up to the qualifier. You fail the qualifier. You have to go back a day, right, in the timeline. So you have to, earn the money again. You've saved up 20,000, then you have to go back to nothing and save up 20,000 again. Still, at the same time, in order to progress, you're having to constantly dodge the police to get to the next race anyway.
That seems
so it's a horrible loop to get stuck in because you can't just immediately go and do the race you're stuck on. You have to build all the money up, and you have to lose the police several times. And that's hours of playing.
Yeah.
So. Well, it's a great racing game, I think, and the whole police thing is a cool angle because you got a little map. You have to think about where you're going because if the police see you, then you're stuck. So it's a strategic thing, but it's also becomes an annoyance when you're trying to progress.
I could see that.
Yeah,
that's
my little rant over for Need for Speed Unbound. I think it has an awful lot of potential. It's made by Criterion. I mean, it's a great driving game, but there's elements of that game that really make it frustrating for me personally.
That's a shame.
Yeah, there you go. So really, what I've been playing is I've been playing that and Mario and of course Fortnite. I'm always dipping into Fortnite on a weekly basis.
Yeah. What did you actually? I'm curious that they launched a lot of new modes. I don't think we talked about that in the last podcast. I think it came out in between. What did you think in particular? Because I think that a Fortnite mode is fun. I thought the racing game from the Rocket League people whose name escapes me was fine, but I didn't really.
No, I didn't feel stick with it myself either.
No. I don't really like the mechanics for the racing stuff. And
it's
the
a bit unique,
handling
isn't it?
In Fortnite, yeah, but it felt like a sloppy kart racer to me, and that's not really what I want. And obviously, I'm not a big driving games fan anyway, so I bounced off immediately. I was somewhat disappointed by the Harmonix rock band.
Did Harmonix actually develop that?
They bought Harmonix, Tom.
You see, I just thought this is very close to Rock Band, and I thought, wow, can they get away with that? But
yes, because they owned the studio that made Rock Band.
I have gone back to that a few times in a multiplayer capacity. Playing. I quite like it. I think how they've laid out the buttons makes a lot of sense on the controller. Actually,
yes.
Once you get it, it's very easy. But once, it's a bit of a learning curve.
I played some of the harder difficulty songs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the harder difficulty. That's another story, isn't it? Playing it on easy.
I could not fucking do it.
Yeah.
I literally, my brain wouldn't work to be like. So for those of you who haven't dipped into Fortnite, they have a new music mode that I believe is called Fortnite Festival.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And generally what it is it's a game made by Harmonix, so unsurprisingly you can play bass, guitar, drums, or the vocals of a particular track. And how they've mapped that to the controller is essentially it's left and up, right, for the first two rails, and then triangle and circle, at least on the PlayStation. So you kind of play
across the controller, isn't it? Yeah.
In a triangular motion across the controller, rather than them having you try and press like the 4 buttons or the 4 direction pads. Yeah. They're trying to think about it like in this kind of V shape. So you think about it in the logic of the guitar neck from Guitar Hero, which is cool. And yes, I admit I played some of the weekend stuff that it launched with, and I was fine until I went on like the medium difficulty or played one of the harder tracks.
Yeah. When I was saying
thing.
It was easy, on the easier difficulties, which makes a lot of sense. But the harder difficulties, I struggled. But I've seen others, take to it very well and be able to do some of those tougher songs on harder difficulties. Yeah.
I wish you could remap it somehow, right. And
I thought it was like the optimal way of doing it myself. I was quite happy with that.
My brain thinks triggers.
Right.
Is what I'm thinking, but like maybe there's not that visual link of like the cross the thing of the controller there. Maybe that's what it is.
It's very bare bones, of course. It's just been extra mode for Fortnite. It's not on the level of something like Rock Band where you can customize your appearance. And I did wonder if you could connect an instrument to it, but I don't think you can.
Not yet. No. There is. I have heard that they were talking about it through other podcasts where someone had potentially, like whoever bought Mad Cats was potentially like fielding interest on social media for plastic instruments. So like maybe that'll happen.
I think if you could just connect your existing plastic instruments rather than having to buy.
That would be fucking great.
Yeah.
If I could dig out the Rock Band guitar I've got upstairs and just play with that would be excellent. I would love that.
Yeah.
But
I did find myself missing that. But the funny thing that it did is it made me want to play those games again.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I would be totally... Essentially what this is Guitar Hero Live, isn't it? Because like they've got cycling.
It is Guitar Hero Live. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and you can buy all of this stuff. Like if you really want to spend like going back to the talk about that card thing at the start, if you really want to spend like 15 quid or whatever it is for a weekend album, you can absolutely do that. But I probably wouldn't.
No, because it rotates anyway. Yeah.
And it seems to rotate on the daily. It seems to be like Fortnite itself. It seems to be updated very quickly.
I'm happy with that. I haven't felt the need to purchase particular tracks because I'm not that invested in the mode to want to do that anyway.
I liked Guitar Hero Live.
Yeah.
I liked that. Like, hey, that there will be different songs.
I was thinking after obviously playing that. I was thinking about Guitar Hero Live a bit, and what that offered was kind of fresh.
I think that was really cool.
That was really cool.
It's
just a shame that the popularity of those type of games was dwindling when that game came out because
I think they should have given it some more time. I think they should have I think they thought like, right, well we've sold a load of plastic instruments, we've let it die down a little bit, and now let's quickly do it again. Because I mean, like that came out on the Wii U, PS4, Xbox Series.
I've got the Wii U guitars under the bed.
I've got the Wii U version of it because I bought it for like a $5 or something like that, and then I played a lot of it, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I want to pull that out actually and give it a go again. Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about this Fortnite thing, and if they were to say, hey, actually, backwards compatible with all previous guitars, that would be dope. A, then you'd have a much easier time selling the 17,000 guitars you have. But B, it would allow older people who have nostalgia and are like, oh, actually, maybe I've still got that guitar in my garage, and they would bring them into Fortnite, I think it would expose a younger generation who didn't have the ability to play Guitar Hero, because, let's be honest, like, there are gamers playing Fortnite who were small children when that came out and perhaps saw the instruments but didn't potentially engage with them.
Epic seems to be making a very conscious decision to offer more than just Fortnite, don't they? Like, to turn Fortnite into where you can play every type of game through. I wouldn't be surprised if one day there's a one-on-one fighting game within
surprise me at all.
within Fortnite, or probably I think it's more likely to do a Smash Brothers type brawler as opposed to one-on-one. I think that would fit in the Fortnite universe pretty well.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Like, you just run around instead of item drops, it's weapons.
Yeah. I think is this to offer something to everyone, isn't it? Within the Fortnite ecosystem, if you don't like shooting stuff, you can do, say, Lego Fortnite and do something a lot more passive and and that type of game.
I mean, I think that's their long goal, right? Like, this is what they've talked about with the quote-unquote metaverse, and I think it is an interesting thing, isn't it? I think, like,
it is.
Again, like Fortnite then becomes like the hub for this other thing, and yes, Battle Royale is a thing, but like, you've had loads of people making games on there for a while, and I've engaged with some of those. My issue is, and always will be, until they kind of figure it out. And to be fair, they seem to resolve some of that in the Lego stuff. I don't think they necessarily hit it with the racing game, even though they clearly tightened the controls somewhat. I think like the way vehicles work in that game and the physics of how they work,
I think it's perfectly fine. That game, it just lacks personality and variation.
But that's the thing. Without that stuff, without it, like, because it's obviously it needs to lean into the aesthetics of Fortnite and everything else. If it was really tight, if it played as well as a Mario Kart, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that would have been huge. I think if you could see the characters in the vehicles, for example, but that's not the direction they went in. That's fine, but I think that would give it a lot more personality.
But again, like, that would be like an over-the-shoulder versus like top-down. Not top-down, you know what I mean? Like that perspective of like being away from the car, which is how you control vehicles in Fortnite, isn't it? Like, it's because it's relying on how the engine works and how that is there.
And the logic of Fortnite that people's heads... Well, sometimes people's heads poke out the top of cars, depending on how big the model is.
Yeah, but it's also just like... I think the gun mechanics are great, the movement is excellent, and then everything else either then requires you to completely rebuild the game and like build a game on top of Fortnite in the same way that the Lego experience and the
Festival
Harmonix game do, where the Fortnite bit in the Harmonix experience, at least, like, kind of I would prefer I didn't have to run around in a 3D space and like go to a person and go, right, now I want to play bass.
Oh, well, yeah, how you get into that. There's a hub. Yeah, it could be more streamlined, that.
I don't think you need the Fortnite bit there. I think you just need a menu, but then, like, because it's...
You select your character. Yeah, that's fine.
Like, just do that. Just, like, pretty much just let me go into it the same way I would go into... a zero build match or one of these big event things. Just let me do that. Just let me select all this stuff, load out. Maybe then like put me in an additional menu when I get inside the game where I pick my guitars or I do whatever I want to do. Yeah. But then just minimize the friction with how I get into playing that game.
I like doing the taunts, like in the gaps in the songs. You can do the Fortnite taunts, and you can see your funny characters. Yeah, I've Cell or Freezer. I got them recently. Seeing them dance in the breaks of the songs is quite funny.
I need to buy the Battle Pass. I need to get Snake. I don't think he's out yet, right?
Last time I played it, Snake wasn't available. I haven't got the Battle Pass this time, but.
I'm literally just going to buy it to get Solid Snake. Yeah. I haven't played much this season, despite these new games. I dipped my toe in, but again,
the good thing is
so much going on with Christmas.
Within the ecosystem, you can play the different modes and still gain XP.
Yes, you can. That was nice. Obviously, I played a lot of the Lego Fortnite, and then I played, like I said, I played a bit of the Rocket Racing. Is that what it's called?
Rocket Racing, yeah, that's right. Rocket League and Rocket Racing.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just trying to see, like, okay, is this what I want? I was hoping. My my little hope, and I don't even know why I did it to myself. I don't know why I let myself think I was like rocket racing and looking at like the speed and stuff in the trailer. I was like, oh, is it going to be like Wipeout?
Or F-Zero?
Can I have Wipeout in Fortnite? No, I don't care about F-Zero.
Oh.
None of that silly Captain Falcon. Thank you.
You want what? You want the cool graphic design?
I want my beautiful graphic design. Oh God, I missed out on that limited edition book that Pixel Map Publishing is putting out. They're doing an Art of Wipeout book.
Wow.
And so I missed the limited edition.
Would you say Wipeout 3 was the pinnacle of the design aesthetic? Because when I think about the cover of Wipeout 3 and probably in-game graphics as well, that had the more sort of simple graphical direction.
I love everything the Designers Republic did for those games.
Yeah.
I think it's very much of that time, but I think like the aesthetics, the color choices,
it's very important, isn't it?
Did. I think it permeated through pop culture in a way that's kind of weird, because I don't know. I know a lot of people that played Wipeout because it was kind of the pinnacle racing game of that early PS2 lifespan. I would say that wasn't like
the PS2 Wipeout. Fusion.
No, the first Wipeout. The first Wipeout, I remember being massive with everyone I knew who had a PlayStation.
You go back and play Wipeout 1 though. It's not.
Oh no, I know it's rough, but I mean like.
But the other ones, the ones that came after.
But the thing is, Wipeout 1 came out alongside, like Ridge Racer, which is not, I would argue, a great experience on the PS1. And like, I know a lot of people that got Wipeout because it was bundled with their console, and that is how I got it through my cousin, because he got it and he didn't really like it, and so I got his copy of Wipeout. He is also the person that was just like, oh, actually, I much prefer Zero Divide, so that's why I like Zero Divide, because I played a lot of that. But it wasn't until 2097 where I was like, oh, actually, this game is dope. And I honestly, like, somewhere in the back of my brain, I think that is the thing that was like, oh, I like all of the pretty things in this look really cool. And then perhaps that's subconsciously why I wanted to be a graphic designer. I don't know.
I think, it was quite unique, I think, at the time. You've got me thinking about Ridge Racer Type 4 now. Cause also,
also a beautiful game.
Yes, it is. It's a game that also has wonderful aesthetics. So it's menus, everything. I played it again because it's one of my favourite racing games of all time. And there is something about an atmosphere that's created within the aesthetics and the music that makes that game something I want to return to. Not only the amazing gameplay, but the whole feel of playing it. And playing it with... I'm on a PS1, so playing with those analog sticks. The way the car reacts to the sticks in Ridge Racer Type 4 on the PS1 just feels right. And it... Oh, yeah. But yeah, Wipeout's great, Ridge Racer Type 4, great. Yeah.
There's just an aesthetic sensibility to both of those games that I really like, and I mean,
they're not the only examples, but they're the ones in the racing genre.
They are the ones within the racing genre, but also the ones of that era that I think really leaned into like graphic design and like swish, like sharp execution. And obviously they do it in two different ways. Like, oh god, you got me talking about graphic design on a video game podcast. Ridge Racer leans into like very like clean, straightforward, like very almost like luxury car brand. Like, hey, we're just gonna
very yellow,
beautiful flat color, very yellow, very like speedy, very heavy, like bold typography usage. That's really cool. And I think the stuff from Design Republic, obviously with Wipeout, is beautifully originative, but it also kind of leans into some stuff that I would see on posters at the time for like rave and like underground culture and stuff, and really bringing that to be the forefront of how they do this game, and then obviously having a soundtrack that amplifies that with like Aphex Twin and Prodigy and all this kind of stuff. I think is really fucking neat, even though that isn't my cup of tea in terms of like musical genre. I still really appreciate it because it feels part of a bigger whole when you play that game.
Yeah,
like you listen to that music, you see the visuals and everything else, and it fits so perfectly into itself.
Yes, it does. It does very much so.
Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about this.
More than Extreme G, although I do like Extreme G.
Yeah, I mean,
no,
like,
it doesn't. They don't compare, but
no, but like, there's a lot of games that tried to riff off
that's
of
right.
that, right? Like, there's Extreme G. What's the one with the girl with the purple hair on the cover on like a motorbike?
I think they're like Extreme G, XG3. It's Extreme G3. Yeah.
Is it XG3
Yeah.
that I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah. That was everywhere at the time. That was an early. Was it early PS2? Wait, I mean, it was on PS2 and GameCube. I don't think it was on Xbox. That one. I think
no.
They rebranded it slightly for a sequel.
What I can see here is PS2 GameCube.
Yeah. That's an iconic cover, though, isn't it? Extreme G3.
It is.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it everywhere at the time. I remember seeing it in so many game shops. Yeah,
Purple-haired girls were in PS2. What's the
Oni?
Oni.
Yeah. No, you're right. So they did do a re-release of it, and weirdly, that one did come out on all three consoles as well,
including Xbox.
Xgra, Extreme G Racing Association.
Yes, I recall now. Yeah.
The fourth and final installment of the Extreme G series. Yeah, it's a game I haven't.
That's the game that I first played on the N64, and I remember very fondly the narration when you got a weapon, multiple missile. Yeah. Anyway, have we exhausted things?
Yeah, I think we have. Like,
we're nattering about.
I'm about to bring up Street Fighter Alpha 3, and I don't want to.
Alpha 3,
great.
Yes. Alpha 3, that's a nice one. Yeah.
There's
nice
so
aesthetic on that game.
Aesthetics on the PS2 into that era.
Anyways. Gosh, yes, I want to go back now and revisit.
Yeah, good thing
games
you can dig through all those boxes this afternoon when you find all of these games.
I can do that.
And then never play them.
I mean, I will play them. The thing is, I do play. I mean, as I say, I was playing Ridge Racer Type 4 the other day. It is in my top 10 games of all time. But I'm looking forward now to having stuff available and being able to revisit these games. And yeah, it's true that I like the more arcade style things, and I'm probably not going to sit down for hours on end and play an RPG or a long adventure game. But I'm certainly going to be dipping back into those more arcadey experiences and enjoying my library now. I have it all accessible to me, and maybe also then realizing perhaps I don't need this and I don't need that, but I definitely need this. Yeah.
I'm eyeing up copies of Ridge Racer, the American box of Ridge Racer Type 4, and going, maybe I should go.
Oh, the American, but that's different. Is that more graphic than
the Japanese? Well, to be fair, the American one's not that good. I thought it was the American one, but it's actually the Japanese one.
The Japanese.
The American one. Yeah. The American one's kind of like a half step. It's just got two cars on a.
Oh, it has. I know the one. Yeah. It's not got the girl on it, has it?
No, it's not got the girl on it, but it's not got the cars like coming in, like the tire marks on the road that the Japanese one has. I'm like, that's.
Did you know that the soundtrack's being re-released?
Yes, I had heard this somewhere.
Yeah, I'm on that because that soundtrack is one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time. I
mean, if the vinyl has this aesthetic on the cover, maybe I'll just buy that instead of the thing.
There's a special edition, I think, of Type 4 in Japan that's quite nice looking. I think. Could be mistaken.
There is also a version of the soundtrack from Japan that is beautiful. It's the R spelled out almost in like a bitmap font.
Yes,
cars.
Yes, I know.
Cool.
I know.
Oh, I love the aesthetics of these games, man. Oh.
I think maybe we should make that a topic for a future episode. Get video games with amazing visual aesthetic, and we're talking about also the presentation, the menus, and the music, and yeah.
Do I really want to give you a platform to talk about Vib Ribbon?
Vib Ribbon. Yes. God, how did we talk about this and not mention Vib Ribbon?
Because I knew we would be here for an hour if I brought up Vib Ribbon to you. Anyways, let's do that. Let's do that next episode.
I'm really excited about chatting about that side of video games.
Yeah, it's not something we do a lot, and as professional graphic designers, I'd argue we're probably allowed to talk about that to some extent.
Yeah.
Anyways, if you've enjoyed us rambling about this, apologies again that is light somewhat on gaming content.
You know what? I actually, in hindsight though, that was pretty interesting, pretty different.
I think so, and I mean the fact that it's sandwiched
Even if we
with
just
one where we talk about games because of my lazy arse and not having time to edit it. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, you can find us in a variety of places, such as on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom Matt Attack. We're on X. I've given up calling it Twitter now; it's dead to me. At TMA Cast, at Game Boyle for me, at Tom Parry 11 for him. And then you can listen to us in all of the places you will listen to podcasts, such as on tommatattack.com/podcast. We're on Blast Processing. We are on Stitcher, iTunes, and Spotify. Cheeky rate, subscribe, etc., etc. Tom, always a pleasure, mate.
Absolutely, Matt. Pleasure to do this again after a while.
Exactly. It's 2024. We're here. Happy New Year, listeners. As I said to Tom, because it's the first time we've spoken since the New Year. I think I'm still in the grey area, if I'm legally allowed to say that. The calendar police might come for me. But Happy New Year to you all. I hope you've had a wonderful holiday.
I think it's fine if it's January.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. If it's January, it's fine.
I'm not going to get into it. My firm belief is like on the cut-off point of the second week, and I think we're already into the third, but it's fine. Anyway, my semantics of when you can say Happy New Year aside, I hope you had a good one, and we will speak to you, and I'm sure what will be an eventful year for video games and probably the world at large. Till next week, everybody, be sure, as always, to game on.
Game on.